out. I really believe that. And so it's info warriors out there in this audience that bring these stories to the forefront, that get them reported. And then Alex can sit here with his powerful microphone and his powerful voice and get these stories out. And that's how they make a difference. I mean, when the Drudge Report puts his links on to InfoWars and all the other stories that drudgereport.com comes out with, it really does make an impact, I believe. And would we ever potentially see another economy like we had in the late 90s? I don't know. I mean, think of the convergence of all these different build-outs that occurred: cell phones, hardware for computers, PCs, the internet itself, and the build-out that occurred there, and then all these companies figuring out ways to take advantage of the internet, a brand new industry, huge, what is now a huge industry, and is still in development. Actually, we're still really in the early stages. Here it is, 2011, and the internet really has only really kind of come on board since the late 90s. So it's still very young overall. Think of the automobile back when it was invented, and think, looking back now, how we've had the automobile for, 100 plus years or however long. And at that time, let's say only 15 or 20 years into the age of the automobile, looking back now, those automobiles were just antique by today's standards. And back then they were state of the art. So here we are with the development of the internet. Who knows where it's all going to go? But hopefully we'll still maintain the level of freedom on the internet. And if there's some way to increase that level of freedom and First Amendment freedom on the web, hopefully it will. But that economy of the late 90s was really something to behold. And part of what really made it hum, along with those build-outs of cell phones, PCs, internet, etc., and the cheap gasoline on top of it all, was just amazing. And then you had a stock market where you had millionaires that were made over a period of 3 or 4 or 5 years, and they're out there spending their money. So that's why I say that, and of course, pretty much everybody knows here in the United States, the inexpensive gasoline is a big key to our economy. And I think one way that we can get some of that back and get our economy back is to fight for and expose just how much oil is out there. I personally, like I said, I'm not a big fan of oil. That's the monopoly ultimately we need to get away from. But we are not going to be able to unless we keep exposing the oil and also keep the American ingenuity up. The only good thing that is derived from these high prices of gasoline and oil is that it does make American ingenuity kick back into gear with the alternatives. But one thing the NWO appears to do is they appear to ratchet up gasoline prices up into the higher ranges that we've never seen, like the $4 a gallon range, etc. But then, alternatives start to come online and it squashes them. So I don't know what the ultimate answer is there to keep our gasoline, oil prices inexpensive, and to keep more importantly, to keep transportation prices inexpensive. That is a big key to our economy. So who knows what the final solutions are going to be to that. But you know what? I have faith in the fellow Americans here on InfoWars and in general that we will come up with solutions to keep transportation inexpensive. And that is a major, major factor to thwart the NWO, is creating our own economies, doing stuff like longevity, the InfoWarsTeam.com. I think more and more people are going to get on board with those types of companies like InfoWars Team and the longevity products, because we've got to have many times more than one gig, so to speak, more than one job, more than one business. The multitasking effect, the same as what we do on the internet, seems to be kind of the way of the future. And I think that opportunities like InfoWars Team are going to be critical to keeping Americans working and to keeping Americans prosperous. Here we have an opportunity to really go international with this business. I was researching that more here recently, And I didn't realize that they're already in a lot of countries. They're already in 50, 60 countries. So if you've got friends and family over there, that's a good opportunity to get a worldwide business going. And so I think that, and that's just one example of the ingenuity that Americans have had in the past and will continue to have. So I've got a lot of faith in my fellow Americans. Okay, wow. I've already talked 47 minutes. That's hard to believe that I've already talked 47. I printed out all this news to cover, and obviously I'm not going to cover much of it. I'll tell you what, let's open up. No, let's not open up the phones. I'm going to try to cover a little bit more news. And during the last 5 minutes, want to talk a little bit about the upcoming Ron Paul campaign and how exciting that's going to be for 2012. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, speaking of the economy, you know, I guess most of y'all keeping up with the news here on Infowars.com. And I know a lot of y'all coast-to-coast fans and Drudge Report fans, etc., are fully aware that they've got the G20 going on in Cannes, France. Cannes, France, and Obama's over there, and a lot of world leaders are there. And we've had this European economic debacle going on now for months. And one of the things that we've all been expecting, and I think will certainly at some point come to fruition, will be that they're going to pump a lot of liquidity into that European economy. And I think ultimately they'll be pumping a lot more liquidity into the U.S. economy. But they've slowed down on that to some degree, I think, because of the protests of info warriors and people like ourselves worried about them overinflating the economy. But I think it's still probably going to happen because the NWO literally has to walk a tightrope, I think, when it comes to just how bad the economy can be allowed to get. And in Europe, if they really pull in their horns and have that austerity, remember I was talking about how in Europe earlier, a lot of these alternative energy companies are subsidized to a great degree. And it sounds pretty bad that a lot of them are subsidized, but I guess the flip side is that, you know, besides there are probably a lot of top level people in some of these subsidized alternative energy companies that are stealing the money, kind of like when we send billions of dollars to other countries around the world. A lot of times that crooked leadership runs off with a good-sized chunk, sometimes maybe even a majority, maybe even 80 or 90% of the millions or billions that we give to other countries. And I think a lot of that sometimes does happen with these government subsidies to these alternative energy companies and other companies. But nonetheless, at least a little bit does find its way into the hands of the regular working Joe. So when they pull the plug on these things, it's going to cut back on some of these jobs, and it's going to cut back on these upcoming alternative energies. And it's, like I said, not necessarily that I'm a big fan of it. It's just that the level of industrial espionage with regards to the energy prices is what I'm talking about and concerned about. So anyway, they're having the G20 in Cannes, France, and they're discussing boosting that liquidity through the IMF, which ultimately I think the IMF and you folks out there in the audience will probably agree, the Federal Reserve and the IMF, there's probably not a whole lot of difference. They're linked at the hip. They're like Siamese twins. So look for that to happen, because I think that the NWO has to be concerned that if they allow their economy to really go down the tube and really go down the skids, that more and more people wake up. That's the danger is, yeah, they put a lot of people out on the street. They put people out there homeless. They put them out there destitute. They're on the European version of food stamps, et cetera, whatever. But more and more people wake up to who the gangster banksters and the geopolitical leaders and movers and shakers really are. So they've got to walk an economic tightrope there, and that's why I think that they will ultimately flood Europe with liquidity, and they're going to figure out ways to pump it out there, even if they have to subsidize basically any kind of upstart company, any kind of mom and pop company. They'll probably end up doing it, which ultimately will end up most likely being highly inflationary. But at least, it's kind of like they inject a little bit of morphine to make the patient feel better. temporarily at least, and then they have to inject more morphine with this liquidity. So it looks like after months and months of wrangling and haranguing that it may finally happen over there in Europe, and the United States will definitely be involved in helping make that happen. I think the European leaders are appealing to the U.S., and basically Obama has responded that they're on their own, but they're really not. The Bernankes are going to be involved, and so it's going to be interesting to see how they handle this European debacle. And I've got mixed feelings about that, because one thing I've noticed is that, if Europe experiences a depression, and in some cases it is a depression like Greece, I'm sure most of that country, a lot of that country is at a depression level, then I think they will further take our economy down into depression. So that's where we've got to be prepared, got to do the best we can to get ourselves out of debt, to get ourselves as self-sufficient as possible. And even, like I say, if you've got a job with a big corporate entity, I would definitely be looking for other ways to supplement my income. And InfoWarsTeam.com is a great place to do it. And also, I think it's key to support this show. I haven't mentioned it yet, but InfoWarsMoneyBomb.com. This is part of the InfoWarsMoneyBomb.com that we're doing today, a full 27 hours. We've got Alex will be coming on later in the broadcast today in about 6 minutes. We've got Charlotte Iserby coming on with an interview, and then at 8 o'clock live via Skype will be Gerald Solente. So keep on listening to InfoWarriors, and I want to continue thanking this audience. And I tell you, Alex Jones is a powerful individual. He's done a lot by himself. He proves every day that one man can make a difference. Let me say that again. He proves it on a daily basis that one man can make a difference. But I tell you, without this audience, even Alex Jones, as powerful of an individual as he is, without you out there in the audience, he wouldn't be near as powerful as what he's become today. And it's very exciting to see his operation continue to grow. He gives back to the community by hiring fellow patriots and other people and bringing them on board. And he really is now looking to this upcoming year go out on the road and meet more Info Warriors and visit more areas of the country and talk to more people out there. All right, we've got 5 minutes to go. Didn't cover hardly any of the news that I thought I'd cover. No surprise there. I guess it happens to me all the time. Even when I was doing Access Cable TV, that's what would happen. I would be ready with all this news and couldn't cover it. But, all right, that red tide still kicking me in the chest. But one of the most important things we can do, along with supporting InfoWarsMoneyBomb.com, along with supporting Infowars.com, and along with supporting Ron Paul on his website, Ron Paul 2012, is we've got to get ourselves to the precinct conventions and precinct caucuses in these upcoming primaries. Folks, it's going to be critical. We need to get out in front of this right now. You need to get your yard signs out, your bumper stickers out, do what's called drive-by canvassing. Do that right now. Learn where your precinct is. Get your map, go to your county, call up whoever you need to find out where your precinct boundaries are, where they lie, and get a map of your precinct. And now is the time to get those bumper stickers, yard signs out. Go out and find your neighbors, your fellow neighbors out there with bumper stickers and yard signs for Ron Paul, or like-minded candidates. There's other candidates, I'm sure, in your areas that are along the lines of Ron Paul and Info Warriors. Go out there and find your neighbors in your precinct. Those are going to be the first ones you want to find, and you guys get together and call a huddle and make out a plan to attack and take over the rest of your precinct. And by that I mean politically speaking, of course, is go out and get lists of primary voters on both sides of the aisle, left and right, Democrat and Republican. Get those lists. You can focus on if you've had races in the past with a Ron Paul type candidate in your area,